Steve Harvey had hosted Family Feud for 18 years, and in that time he had mastered the art of keeping his composure. He could handle bizarre answers, emotional families, and unexpected moments with equal parts humor and grace. But on that gray October afternoon in 2024, a 17-year-old boy named Marcus Thompson was about to say something that would completely shatter Steve's professional demeanor, reduce him to tears on national television, and reveal a promise so profound, so heartbreaking, and so beautiful that it would remind millions of viewers what it truly means to honor the people we love. Before we dive into Marcus's incredible story, if you believe in keeping promises, honoring our parents, and the strength it takes to carry on after devastating loss, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. What you're about to hear will break your heart and put it back together again in the same breath. The Thompson family from Detroit, Michigan, stood ready to compete against the Martinez family from Phoenix, Arizona. The Thompson family consisted of 5 members, but it was immediately clear to everyone in the studio that something was different about this group. Standing in the center position was Marcus Thompson, just 17 years old, tall and lanky, with close cropped hair and serious dark eyes that seemed to hold more weight than most teenagers carry. Beside him stood his father, David Thompson, 42, a weary-looking man with gray streaking his temples and deep lines around his eyes that spoke of recent grief. Next to David was Marcus's younger sister, 12-year-old Jasmine, a quiet girl with her hair in neat braids who stayed close to her father's side. The fourth family member was Marcus's aunt, his mother's sister, Patricia, a woman in her late 30s who kept a protective hand on Jasmine's shoulder. And the fifth member was Marcus's grandmother, his father's mother, 65-year-old Dorothy, who stood straight-backed and dignified despite the sadness evident in her expression. What was missing was immediately noticeable. There was no mother. The typical Family Feud family dynamic of parents and children was broken, leaving a visible gap that the audience could sense even before anyone said a word. During the introductions, Steve Harvey went down the line as he always did, asking each family member their name and what they did. When he got to Marcus, he asked the standard questions with his usual warmth. "So, Marcus, you're 17? You in school?" Marcus nodded, his voice quiet but steady. "Yes, sir, Mr. Harvey. I'm a senior at Cass Technical High School." Steve smiled. "Cass Tech, that's a good school. Smart kid. What are you planning to do after graduation?" Marcus's expression shifted slightly, and he glanced at his father before answering. "I'm going to college, sir. University of Michigan. I got a full academic scholarship. I'm going to study engineering." The audience applauded, and Steve's face lit up with genuine pride. "Full ride to U of M. That's outstanding, young man. Your parents must be so proud of you." The moment the words left Steve's mouth, he saw Marcus's face change. The teenager's jaw tightened, his eyes glistened with sudden tears, and his father beside him tensed visibly. Steve, with his years of experience reading people and situations, immediately knew he had touched on something painful. He shifted his approach, his voice gentler. "I'm sorry, did I say something wrong?" Marcus shook his head, swallowing hard. "No, sir. It's just my mom. She passed away 7 months ago. She never got to see me get the scholarship, but she knew I would. She always knew." The studio fell silent. Steve Harvey's smile faded, replaced by an expression of deep sympathy and sorrow. "Oh, son, I am so sorry for your loss. I didn't know." Marcus nodded, wiping his eyes quickly. "It's okay, sir. She had cancer. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. She fought for 2 years, but it was aggressive. She died in March." Steve looked at David, at Jasmine, at the whole family, and he could see the fresh grief written on all their faces. This wasn't old, distant loss. This was raw, recent, the kind of pain that still took your breath away when you least expected it. "I'm so sorry to your whole family," Steve said, his voice thick with emotion. "I can't imagine what you've been going through. Was your mother the one who signed you all up for Family Feud?" David spoke up for the first time, his voice rough as if he didn't use it much anymore. "Yes, Angela, my wife, she loved this show. She watched it every day. When she got sick, it was one of the things that could still make her laugh, even on her worst days. She always said she wanted to bring the family on here, that we would win, that she would get Steve Harvey to do that face he does when someone gives a crazy answer." A small, sad smile crossed David's face. "She applied about a year ago, but we didn't hear anything for months. Then, 3 weeks after she passed, we got the call that we'd been selected. At first, I didn't want to do it. It felt wrong to come here without her, but Marcus convinced me. He said it's what Angela would have wanted. Steve looked back at Marcus, at this 17-year-old who had just lost his mother and was somehow holding his family together enough to get them to a game show taping. That took a lot of strength, Marcus, to convince your family to keep going with this even while you're all grieving. Your mother raised a strong young man. Marcus's eyes filled with tears again, but he held Steve's gaze. She raised me to keep promises, Mr. Harvey, and I made her a promise before she died. I promised her I would take care of the family, that I would make sure Jasmine was okay, that I would make something of myself, and that I would find joy even in the sadness. Coming here, doing this thing she wanted to do, that's part of keeping my promise. The audience was already crying, and the game hadn't even started yet. Steve Harvey stood there, microphone in hand, visibly struggling to maintain his composure. He cleared his throat roughly and nodded. Well, we're honored to have you all here, and I have a feeling Angela is watching, cheering you on. Let's play this game for her. All right. The family nodded, and the game began. The Thompsons played with surprising energy despite their grief. Marcus was an excellent player, giving thoughtful, intelligent answers that frequently topped the board. Jasmine, quiet but determined, gave sweet answers that made the audience smile. David played with increasing enthusiasm, as if he was remembering how to feel joy again, if only for these moments. Patricia and Dorothy supported and encouraged, creating a team dynamic that was both competitive and loving. The Martinez family played well too, but they were clearly moved by the Thompson family's story and seemed less focused on winning than on being part of something meaningful. By the fourth round, the Thompsons had built a substantial lead, and they were on track to win the game. The pivotal moment came during a question that seemed innocuous. Typical Family Feud material designed to be lighthearted and fun. Steve read from the card. Name something a teenage boy might promise his mother. The Martinez family had control of the board and had already revealed 3 answers: to clean his room, to do his homework, and to be home by curfew. They had 2 strikes and needed to find one of the remaining answers to win the round and stay in the game. The next Martinez family member guessed to not get a tattoo and struck out. Control passed to the Thompson family for a chance to steal. The family huddled together, discussing their options in hushed voices. After a moment, they broke apart, and it was clear they had decided Marcus should give the answer. He stepped up to the podium, and Steve positioned himself beside the teenager. "All right, Marcus," Steve said, trying to keep his tone light and encouraging. "Name something a teenage boy might promise his mother. What do you think?" Marcus looked at Steve, and in his eyes was a depth of pain and love that 17-year-olds shouldn't have to carry. He took a breath, and when he spoke, his voice was clear and strong, filled with conviction. To live. A teenage boy might promise his mother that he'll live, that he'll really live. Not just survive, but actually live a full and meaningful life. The studio went completely silent. Steve Harvey froze, his hand holding the microphone dropping slowly to his side. The smile that had been on his face disappeared entirely, replaced by an expression of shock and dawning understanding. Marcus continued, tears now flowing freely down his face, but his voice never wavering. "That's what I promised my mom, Mr. Harvey. In her last week, when she was in hospice and we all knew she didn't have much time left, she called me to her bedside one night. She was so weak she could barely talk, but she held my hand and she made me promise her something. She said, 'Marcus, I need you to promise me that you won't just exist. I need you to promise me that you'll live, that you'll go to college and study what you love, that you'll fall in love someday and let yourself be happy, that you'll laugh and dance and travel and do all the things I won't get to see you do. Promise me you won't let my death make you stop living.'" The tears were streaming down Marcus's face now, but he kept talking, needing to finish, needing to honor his mother's memory. "And I promised her, Mr. Harvey, I held her hand and I promised her I would live, that I would make her proud, that I would take care of Dad and Jasmine, that I would succeed not in spite of losing her, but because of everything she taught me, that I would find joy again, that I would let myself feel happiness without guilt, that I would honor her by living the fullest life I possibly could." Steve Harvey stood there, and for the first time in his nearly 2 decades of hosting Family Feud, he completely lost his composure. Tears poured down his face, his shoulders shook, and he made no attempt whatsoever to hide his emotion. He pulled Marcus into a tight embrace. this teenage boy who had just revealed the most profound promise Steve had ever heard. The audience was sobbing, the Martinez family was crying, the Thompson family was holding each other, all of them crying together. The camera operators were wiping their eyes. The producers were crying off stage. There was not a single dry eye in the entire studio. Steve and Marcus held each other for several long moments, and when Steve finally pulled back, he had to wipe his eyes multiple times before he could even attempt to speak. His voice, when he finally found it, was raw and broken. Marcus, Steve said, struggling to get the words out. In all my years of doing this show, in all the families I've met and all the stories I've heard, I have never, and I mean never, heard anything as powerful as what you just said. Your mother raised an incredible young man, and I have no doubt that wherever she is so proud of you. Steve turned to look at the board, even though in this moment nobody cared what the answer was. But there it was, revealed on the screen. To live, be successful, the number one answer, worth 38 points. The Thompson family won the round, securing their victory in the game, but the win felt secondary to the moment that had just occurred. Steve called for a break, and the production team immediately agreed. The families needed time, the audience needed time, and honestly, Steve needed time to collect himself. During the break, Steve sat with the Thompson family in a quiet area backstage. He wanted to hear more about Angela, about the kind of woman who could raise a son like Marcus, who could face death with enough grace to extract a promise of life from her child. David told Steve about Angela's strength during her illness, how she had never complained, never asked why me, but had instead focused all her energy on preparing her family for life without her. She had written letters for Jasmine to open on future birthdays and important milestones. She had recorded videos for both children, giving them advice about life, love, relationships, career, everything she could think of that they might need guidance on. In the years to come, she had planned her own funeral, picking out music that was uplifting rather than sad because she wanted people to celebrate her life rather than mourn her death. Patricia, Angela's sister, shared that Angela had made her promise to check on David and the kids regularly, to make sure they weren't isolating themselves in grief, to push them to keep engaging with life even when it was hard. She was so intentional about everything, Patricia said through tears. She knew she was dying, and instead of falling apart, she used the time she had left to give her family every tool they would need to survive. Without her, she was the strongest person I've ever known. Dorothy, Marcus's grandmother, added that Angela had also extracted promises from her and from David. She had made David promise that he would eventually date again, that he wouldn't spend the rest of his life alone out of some misguided loyalty to her. Memory. She had made Dorothy promise to help David with the kids, to be an extra source of stability and love for them. Angela had orchestrated her family's survival even as she was dying, and the love behind those actions was staggering. Steve listened to all of this, and then he asked Marcus the question that was burning in his mind. Son, you promised your mother you would live. How are you doing with that? Because I can see you're strong. I can see you're holding your family together. But I also know that 17-year-olds aren't supposed to have to be this strong. How are you really doing? Marcus was quiet for a long moment, considering his answer carefully. When he spoke, his honesty was devastating and beautiful in equal measure. Some days are really hard, Mr. Harvey. Some days I wake up and I forget for just a second that she's gone. And then I remember and it feels like I'm losing her all over again. Some days I feel guilty when I laugh or when something good happens because she's not here to share it with me. Some days I'm angry at her for leaving us, even though I know she didn't have a choice, even though I know she would have stayed if she could. He paused, wiping his eyes. But I made her a promise, and I'm keeping it. I'm going to college. I'm maintaining my grades, even though some days I can barely focus because I'm so sad. I'm being there for Jasmine when she has nightmares or when she cries for mom. I'm helping Dad remember to eat and sleep and keep functioning. And I'm trying to live, really live, the way I promised her I would. It's the hardest thing I've ever done, but I'm doing it because she asked me to, and because I loved her too much to break that promise. Steve Harvey looked at this 17-year-old boy who was displaying more strength, maturity, and integrity than most adults ever achieve, and he felt humbled and awed. Marcus, I need you to know something. You're going to go to University of Michigan, and you're going to study engineering, and you're going to build an incredible life. But the greatest thing you'll ever build isn't going to be a bridge or a building or whatever engineers create. So the greatest thing you've already built is the character your mother gave you, and the strength you've shown in honoring her. That's your real legacy, and it's incredible. The conversation continued for another 20 minutes, with Steve sharing his own experiences with loss. Talking about his mother and the promises he had made to her, he created a connection with Marcus that went beyond post and contestant, two people who understood the weight of carrying a deceased parent's dreams and expectations while also trying to forge your own path. Finally, they returned to the stage to finish taping the episode. The Thompson family played fast money and did well, though the specific score and whether they won the money felt almost irrelevant compared to what had already transpired. When it came time for Marcus to play his round of fast money, Steve approached him with visible respect and affection. Marcus, before we start, I want to say something. Your mother, Angela, is watching you right now. I truly believe that. And she is so proud of you, not because of how you're about to do on this game, but because of who you are and how you're honoring her. Never forget that. Marcus nodded, too emotional to speak. He played his round, giving solid answers. And when it was over and the points were tallied, the Thompson family had won. But before they could celebrate, Steve did something unprecedented. He told the producers he wanted to make an announcement, and he wanted it included in the episode. I've been hosting this show for a long time, Steve said, addressing the cameras directly, and every once in a while I meet a family that changes me. The Thompson family has changed me. Marcus Thompson has changed me. This young man lost his mother 7 months ago, and instead of letting that tragedy destroy him, he made her a promise that he would live. And he's keeping that promise every single day. That kind of strength, that kind of integrity, that deserves to be recognized and celebrated. Steve turned to Marcus. Your mother wanted to bring your family on this show, and you made that happen for her. You won this game for her, but I want to do something more. Family Feud is going to set up a scholarship fund in your mother, Angela's name. We're going to provide scholarships for students who have lost parents to cancer but who are still pursuing their education, still choosing to live and thrive despite their loss. Because your mother's legacy of strength and your commitment to honoring her deserve to create ripples that go beyond just your family. The audience erupted in applause, standing and cheering. Marcus broke down completely, sobbing as Steve pulled him into another embrace. David came over and joined them, holding his son, both of them crying for Angela, for their loss, for the unexpected kindness they were being shown. The image of the three of them, along with Jasmine, who ran over to join the embrace, became one of the most iconic moments in Family Feud history. A picture of a family shattered by loss but holding each other together through love and commitment. When the episode aired 4 weeks later, the response was immediate and overwhelming. The clip of Marcus explaining his promise to his mother went viral within hours, viewed tens of millions of times across every social media platform. People from around the world commented on Marcus's strength, his mother's wisdom, and the profound love evident in their relationship. The hashtag Live for Angela began trending, with people sharing their own stories of promises made to dying loved ones and commitments to honor those who had passed by living fully and authentically. Parents who were terminally ill reached out to thank Marcus for modeling what it looked like to help your children prepare for your death with grace and intention. Teenagers who had lost parents shared how Marcus' story gave them permission to feel both grief and joy, to honor their lost parent while also moving forward with their lives. Mental health professionals praised the Thompson family for showing healthy grieving, for demonstrating that you could acknowledge pain while still choosing to engage with life. Grief counselors began using clips from the episode in support groups, helping people understand that promises to deceased loved ones could be motivating rather than burdensome, connecting rather than isolating. The scholarship fund that Steve had announced became a reality, with Family Feud partnering with several cancer organizations to create the Angela Thompson Memorial Scholarship. In the first year alone, they were able to award scholarships to 15 students who had lost parents to cancer but were still pursuing higher education. Each scholarship recipient received not just financial support, but also a letter that Marcus had written, sharing his own experience and encouraging them to keep their own promises to their lost parents. Marcus himself became an unexpected spokesman for young people dealing with grief. He was invited to speak at high schools and colleges, sharing his mother's story and his promise to her. He always emphasized the same themes, that grief and joy could coexist, that honoring the dead meant living fully rather than stopping your life, that promises to people we love give us strength even when they're no longer physically present, and that asking for help and showing vulnerability was strength, not weakness. When Marcus graduated from high school 6 months after the Family Feud episode aired, it was a bittersweet moment. Angela wasn't there to see him walk across the stage, to take pictures with him in his cap and gown, to cry proud mother tears at his accomplishments. But in another way, she was there in everything he had become, in the strength and character he displayed, in the promise he was keeping to her every single day. Steve Harvey sent Marcus a graduation gift, a framed photograph from their Family Feud appearance with an inscription, "To Marcus, you promised your mother you would live. Never stop keeping that promise. You're making her proud every single day, minus Steve." Marcus hung the photograph in his dorm room when he started at University of Michigan that fall, a daily reminder of his mother and the commitment he had made to her. College was hard for Marcus in ways that had nothing to do with academics. He was surrounded by students who had their mothers just a phone call away, who could call home when they were stressed or homesick, who took for granted the presence of both parents in their lives. Marcus had to navigate that reality while also excelling in his challenging engineering program, looking out for his younger sister, who was struggling in middle school without their mom, and supporting his father, who was trying to rebuild a life as a widower. But Marcus kept his promise. He joined clubs, made friends, went to football games and social events. He let himself laugh without guilt. He started dating a classmate named Alicia, who was kind and patient with his grief. He called home regularly, but also allowed himself to build a life at college that was his own. Separate from his identity as the kid whose mom died, he volunteered with a campus organization that supported students who had lost parents, using his experience to help others navigate their own grief. He maintained a 3.8 gigapascals in one of the most demanding programs at the university. He was living, truly living, just as he had promised Angela he would. Jasmine struggled more visibly than Marcus. At 12, she was at an age where girls desperately need their mothers, and Angela's absence was a constant, painful presence in her life. She had trouble in school, difficulty making friends, and frequent emotional breakdowns. But Marcus kept his promise to take care of her. He came home from college every few weeks, taking her out for ice cream or to the movies. Being present in the way their mother would have been if she could, he helped her navigate friendship, drama, and school stress. He attended her school concerts and basketball games when their father couldn't get off work. He was her big brother, but he was also trying to fill gaps that no sibling should have to fill. David, with support from his mother Dorothy and his sister-in-law Patricia, slowly began to heal. He started attending a grief support group for widowers. He began dating again, carefully, and with tremendous guilt at first, but gradually accepting that Angela had been right when she told him not to spend the rest of his life alone. 2 years after Angela's death, David met a woman named Claire, a fellow widower who understood his grief because she carried her own. They began a relationship built on mutual understanding of loss and appreciation for second chances. When David introduced Claire to his children, Marcus was supportive and welcoming, understanding that his father, deserving happiness and partnership, didn't diminish his love for Angela. Jasmine struggled more with it, but with family therapy and Marcus's gentle encouragement, she too came to accept Claire as someone who could add to their family without replacing their mother. 3 years after the Family Feud episode aired, Steve Harvey invited the Thompson family back for Where Are They Now special. The family returned to the studio, and the change in them was visible. They still carried their grief, that was evident, but they also carried joy, hope, and a sense of having survived the worst thing that could happen and come out the other side intact. Marcus, now 20 and halfway through his engineering degree, had grown into a confident young man. He spoke about his college experience, his volunteer work, his relationship with Alicia, who had become his serious girlfriend, and his continued commitment to living the full life he had promised his mother. "I think about her every day," Marcus told Steve in the audience. "I still miss her every day, but I've learned that grief doesn't mean you stop living. Grief and joy can exist in the same heart. In the same moment even, I can be sad that she's not here to see me succeed, and I can also be genuinely happy about that success. Both things are true at the same time." Jasmine, now 15, spoke about her own journey through grief. "It's been really hard," she admitted. "I'm not going to pretend it hasn't been. There are days I'm still really angry that my mom isn't here, especially for girl stuff that I need a mom for. But I have Aunt Patricia and Grandma Dorothy, and now I have Claire too. and they all help in different ways. And I have Marcus, who keeps his promises, not just the one he made to mom, but the promise he made to me to always be there for me. And I'm trying to keep my own promise to mom, to not let her death define me, to be happy and successful and live a good life. David spoke about his journey toward happiness after loss, about meeting Claire and learning that loving again didn't mean forgetting or betraying Angela's memory. Angela wanted me to be happy, David said. She told me explicitly not to spend my life alone, and while it took me a long time to accept that, I finally have. Claire has been a blessing, and I think Angela would approve. I think she'd want her kids to have another loving adult in their lives, and she'd want me to have a partner to grow old with. The special episode also featured updates on the Angela Thompson Memorial Scholarship, which had now helped 45 students who had lost parents to cancer continue their education. Several scholarship recipients were in the audience, and they stood to be recognized. A visible testament to how Angela's legacy was rippling outward, helping people she had never met, but who were connected to her through shared experience of loss. Steve Harvey spoke about how Marcus's appearance on Family Feud had changed his own perspective on his role as a host and as a person. I thought I was just hosting a game show, Steve said. But Marcus reminded me that every interaction is an opportunity for something meaningful, that every person has a story that matters, and that sometimes the most important thing we can do is create space for people to share their truth and then honor that truth with respect and love. Marcus, you changed my life that day, and you've changed countless other lives since then. Your mother would be so incredibly proud of who you've become. The episode concluded with Marcus sharing a video message that Angela had recorded for him before she died. To be opened when he turned 20, the family had agreed to share a portion of it with the viewing audience. In the video, Angela appeared thin and weak from her illness, but her eyes were bright and her smile was warm. She spoke directly to the camera, directly to her future 20-year-old son. Marcus, if you're watching this, it means I'm gone and you've made it to 20 years old. I'm so proud of you, baby. I'm proud of the man you're becoming, the promises you're keeping, the life you're building. I need you to know something. My greatest accomplishment in life wasn't anything I did professionally or any achievement I earned. My greatest accomplishment was being your mother and Jasmine's mother. You two are my legacy, my contribution to the world, and you are more than I ever could have hoped for. Angela's voice caught with emotion in the video, but she continued, I know I asked you to promise me that you would live, and I know that's a heavy burden to put on a 17-year-old. But Marcus, I need you to understand something. That promise wasn't just for me, it was for you, because I don't want my death to rob you of your joy, your future, your possibilities. You deserve to have a full and happy life, and you deserve to pursue that without guilt, without feeling like you're betraying my memory by being happy. In fact, the best way you can honor my memory is by being happy, by living fully, by becoming everything you're capable of becoming. So keep that promise, baby. Keep living, keep loving, keep growing, keep being the amazing person I know you are. And know that wherever I am, I'm watching you and I'm so, so proud. The video ended, and there was not a dry eye in the studio. Marcus sat with tears streaming down his face, but he was also smiling, filled with love for his mother and determination to continue honoring her in the way she had asked him to. 5 years after Marcus's first appearance on Family Feud, he graduated from the University of Michigan with his engineering degree. He had accepted a job with a firm in Detroit, wanting to stay close to his family and to contribute to his hometown's rebuilding and development. He had proposed to Alicia, and they were planning a wedding for the following year. Jasmine was thriving in high school, making plans to attend college herself and considering a career in counseling. Inspired by her own journey through grief and her desire to help others navigate loss, David and Claire had gotten married in a small ceremony, blending their families and creating new traditions, while still honoring the memory of the spouses they had lost. At Marcus's college graduation, there was an empty seat in the audience with a photograph of Angela on it, a visible representation of her presence in absence. After the ceremony, Marcus stood by that seat for a long time, looking at his mother's picture. I kept my promise, Mom, he said quietly. I lived. I really lived. And I'm going to keep living, keep honoring you, keep making you proud. I love you. He placed his graduation tassel on the photograph, a symbol of the achievement she had known he would reach, even though she didn't live to see it. The story of Marcus Thompson and his promise to his mother became one of the most enduring and meaningful moments in Family Feud history. It was referenced in articles about grief, about parenting, about the bonds between mothers and sons. It was shown in therapy sessions and support groups. It was shared by people dealing with terminal illness who wanted to model Angela's grace and intentionality in preparing their own families for loss. It became a cultural touchstone for conversations about healthy grieving and living fully after loss. For Marcus himself, the promise he made to his mother at 17 continued to shape his life at 23, at 30, at every age he reached that she didn't. He named his first daughter Angela, ensuring that his mother's name and legacy would continue into the next generation. He spoke at the Angela Thompson Memorial Scholarship Award ceremonies each year, sharing his mother's story and encouraging recipients to keep their own promises to their lost parents. He lived a full, rich, meaningful life, not in spite of his mother's death, but in many ways because of the way she had prepared him for it, because of the promise she had extracted from him, and because of his unwavering commitment to honoring her by truly living. As we close this powerful story, I want you to think about the promises you've made to the people you love, especially to those who are no longer with you. Think about how you're honoring them, how you're living in a way that would make them proud, how you're balancing grief with joy, memory with forward movement. Marcus Thompson showed us what it looks like to keep a promise to a dying parent, to honor their memory not by stopping your life, but by living it as fully as possible. He demonstrated that strength isn't about not crying or not hurting. It's about moving forward even when you're broken. It's about keeping your commitments even when everything in you wants to give up. If this story has moved you, if it's made you think about your own life, your own losses, your own promises, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. Share this story with someone who's grieving, someone who needs permission to feel both sadness and joy, someone who needs to be reminded that honoring the dead means living fully rather than dying alongside them. Marcus walked onto a game show stage as a grieving 17-year-old, and he revealed a promise that broke Steve Harvey's heart and inspired millions of people. He showed us that the people we love never truly leave us as long as we carry them in our hearts and honor them through our choices and our actions. Thank you, Marcus, for your strength, your honesty, and your unwavering commitment to keeping your promise. Your mother, Angela, raised an extraordinary son, and her legacy lives on, not just in the scholarship that bears her name, but in the man you've become and the life you're living in her honor.